StrayAllDay.com.
You're now tuned into the show where you learn the discipline to show up day after day, to do the work, the confidence to put yourself out there boldly and authentically, and the mental toughness to continue showing up, doing the work, putting yourself out there, even when the success you've expected to achieve has yet to be achieved. And on top of all this, you get a huge dose of personal initiative. That is the go-getter energy that moves any one of us, including yourself, to go and make things happen instead of waiting for things to happen. And then we put all this together into a series of frameworks, approaches, insights, strategies, and techniques all underneath the umbrella of one unified philosophy that is called Work on Your Game. My name is Dre Baldwin, also known as Dre All Day, and welcome to the show. And today's topic is give advice only if, and I will fill in the blank in a minute. Before we get into this, I'll remind you all of two things. First of all, my daily motivation, Monday motivation messages guaranteed to have you focused, sharp, and on point to start your day or your week, respectively. All you got to do to receive those, be a member of my texting community. It's free to join. Text me at my number, 305-384-6894. Once we start sending that message again, you'll be getting it straight to your phone. Secondly, Work on Your Game University. If you want to work with me directly, get access to our trainings and courses, and have me as your direct coach, go to workonyourgameuniversity.com. Link down below in the description. Now, today's topic, give advice only if. First of all, let me remind you all that I told you yesterday that I had a story to tell you. So let me tell you a story. Y'all don't mind me telling a story. So as you know, over here at Work on Your Game Incorporated, we do a good amount of outreach for collaborations. Sometimes the collaboration can commence with me appearing on someone else's platform, such as a virtual event, such as a live in-person event, such as a YouTube video, radio show, or a podcast. So someone I had reached out to, a podcast host, we reached out and they said, I would love to have Dre on our platform. Can he be a guest on my podcast? I will say that this is a woman. I will say that she lives somewhere in the western half of the United States. That's all I'll say to identify this woman, at least for now. That may change in the future. But anyway, this podcast host, we recorded on her show and everything went great. I didn't know her from anywhere before. She didn't know me from anywhere before. So we basically got introduced to each other. This happened all in the month of September 2024. So when we were doing the recording, I had posted like a little clip on social media of us recording on my Instagram story. So it disappears after a day. And she, right after we finished recording, she saw that I tagged her on Instagram. So she went and followed me on Instagram. And I followed her back on Instagram. And I don't follow that many people on social media. And after that, she started following me on Instagram over the next week. And I post on social media quite a lot. And I guess she was looking at my posts. And when you first start following somebody, basically you see their stuff at the top of your feed all the time. Eventually, she sent me a direct message. And I believe, unless she deleted it, I believe I still have that direct message. Let me see if it's still there. I do still have that direct message. Would you like to hear what she said? Sure. You want to hear it? Okay. So this is what she said. She said, I want to see the first thing. Okay. So she sent me a message in mid-September 2000. And so the first time I mentioned her, it was actually in August. It was late August when we recorded for her show. Then it was in September, mid-September, about a couple of weeks later, she sent me a DM. She said, Dre, are you open to feedback? That's good. That's a good question to ask. Before you give someone feedback, you should ask them if they're open. I said, yes. She said, thank you for being open to feedback. And she said, first she mentioned something on one of my websites that something wasn't working and she just had the wrong URL. So we fixed that one. So that is not mentionable. Second thing she said, here's what she says. I'm reading this. I'm very selective about the guests I feature, and I want to be honest with you. Some of the posts on your social platforms, while passionate, come across in a way that might be interpreted as overly confident or even arrogant. These are her words. Additionally, I noticed some political content that doesn't seem aligned with the level of professionalism I strive to present for my business owners or for business owners on my podcast. It was a podcast about business owners, of which she is and I am. And she said, I think it can distract from your core business goals. That's her talking to me. Then she said, this is feedback and shared with the utmost respect for you. I think you have a lot to offer, and I hope these observations are helpful in fine-tuning how you present yourself online. If you'd like to discuss further, I'm always happy to chat. That's what she said. So I went and addressed the website thing that she was talking about. And then I said to her, what I said to her was regarding these posts that you're referring to. So first of all, she said, the way you're coming off can seem overly confident or even arrogant. What the hell does that even mean? First of all, I did 2 TED Talks on confidence about how there's no such thing as having too much confidence. That's literally the name of one of my TED Talks. And also have a very popular YouTube video that probably has 100,000 views. Is how to be so confident that people call you arrogant and cocky. But that's literally the title of the video. So she and I obviously have different views on what confidence means. But let me get back into the conversation. This is all in the DMs on Instagram, which I still have. So I responded to her and said, regarding these posts, it depends on what specifically I said. And if there's a particular post, tell me what you're referring to so we can get specific as to what she has a problem with, because that's what I wanted to know. What exactly do you have a problem with? She said, some of your posts on social media. I post on social media 10 times a fucking day. So what are you talking about? And then when it came to confident piece, I told her the same thing I just told you. I have YouTube videos, TED Talks about confidence. Clearly, we just see confidence differently. Whatever. I don't give a damn what she thinks about it. And she said some of the political content doesn't align with what she strives to give her business owners who listen to her show, which means has absolutely nothing to do with what I'm posting, because I'm not the host of her show. I was just a guest on her show. And what we talked about when we recorded on her show was not about politics at all. So I really, it's a non sequitur. She's trying to make a connection between me being on her show and what I talk about on my social media. What the fuck is the connection? Just because I talk about something on social media has nothing to do with what we talked about on your show. On her show, we talked about business, which is what the show is about. I gave her exactly what she wanted in the recording of the show. And I have the recording, by the way, which I'll probably put out if she decides not to put out this episode. And I don't know the answer to that yet. And I finally said to her, are you meaning that someone in your audience may disagree with something that I said about a certain person or about a certain entity? In such a case, I said this directly to her, that's not unprofessional. That's a difference of opinion. And if you have a difference of opinion, just say so. I called her to the carpet and said, if you just disagree with my opinion, just say you disagree with my opinion. I would respect that. But she didn't do that. Let's continue what she said. She says, I understand that terms like overly confident and arrogant can be subjective, because I had told her that. And she said, I'll review specific examples. So she said she would find some examples. Then when it came to the political content, here's what she says. Said, I appreciate your perspective. My concern is about maintaining a professional tone. Keep that word in mind, professional tone that resonates with my podcast audience, which again, why the fuck do I care about your podcast audience? They're not the ones following me on Instagram. You are. Anyway, there were a few posts where the comments and responses seemed to carry animosity. That's what she said, talking about me. If content is perceived as divisive, it can impact how the audience connects with the show, which again, what the hell does what I post on Instagram have to do with your audience and your show? There's no connection. That's a non sequitur. Non sequitur translates to it does not follow. All right, you're saying this means this. There's no following between these 2 points that she's making, which again, I said all these things back to her. But anyway, I'm just telling you what she said. And all right, we continue. And she said again, I appreciate you, Dre. I hope you know this is coming from a good place, with a little heart emoji. And then here's where she really got crazy. She said, here are a couple examples. And what she did was she went on X/Twitter. So this is not even Instagram. This is over on X, which she does not even use. But somehow she found my X account. Maybe she was just Googling me or looking me up as research for her show before publishing the episode. And she actually, sometimes I take a meme post off Twitter and I screenshot it and then I post it to Instagram. So maybe that's where she saw it. So she goes over to my X account and she sees some conversations that I'm having with people. I just told you all yesterday that X is a contact sport platform. It's about social issues, it's about things that are happening, current events, and people disagree. And if you get into the game over there, it's a contact sport. You better come with your headgear on, because it ain't no soft sport. So I'm in there going back and forth with a person about whatever it is that we're talking about, me and this other individual. We were in the midst of a back and forth the very day that she screenshotted this. So she takes a screenshot of one of my posts on X where I'm talking to someone. This is in the middle of a conversation. She takes it out of context. And what she does is she goes and runs it into Chat GPT. Yes, this has really happened. Don't laugh. She went to Chat GPT, pasted my X response to this person into Chat GPT and asked Chat GPT, what do you think of the tone of this person's comment? And Chat GPT says, well, 1 is an accusatory tone. 2, this person's using the generalization. 3, this person's using loaded language. Number 4, this could possibly be passive aggressive framing. Then she goes and says, well, here's another one. The second thing that you said, Dre, and she screenshotted it to me. She said, this carries a somewhat condescending tone because you use the word incorrect. You're using very authoritative language. Like, this is literally what she's saying to me. And this is all from what ChatGPT told her. So she copied and pasted it out of ChatGPT and sends it to me in a DM. And then she says, using an absolutist argument, this can be perceived as arrogant or patronizing due to the definitive, authoritative tone and lack of openness to dialogue. Bitch, are you crazy? This is what I'm thinking when I'm reading these DMs. And she goes on, gives another screenshot. She says this, ChatGPT says, this statement carries a confrontational and dismissive tone because it can be perceived as offensive or hostile. Because I'm in a back and forth exchange with this person and we are disagreeing on something. He said something, I said something, he said something, I said something. And I said to him, wrong again. And ChatGPT catches that. Oh, saying wrong again, this is openly dismissive, and it suggests that the person being addressed is repeatedly incorrect, which can feel belittling. What the fuck is this? Preschool? Then number two, oh, you're using accusatory language. Number three, using ad hominem accusation, which I did based on, again, in context of the conversation. And number four, using a definitive tone and an authoritative tone. And ChatGPT says in conclusion, the tone here is harsh and confrontational, likely to provoke a defensive response rather than fostering a respectful discussion. I agree with that. But again, in context, you have to understand why I'm talking like this, which I've already explained to all of you, which this woman, she's no dummy. All right, she's an entrepreneur. All right, she is not stupid. She clearly understood this, which again leads to, let me tell you what I said back to her once she sent me her opinions via ChatGPT. All right, so she got her opinion from ChatGPT and just pasted it and said, here's what ChatGPT says. Now defend yourself against ChatGPT. This is really what this bitch says to me. So let's continue. I reply and say, first of all, you don't even use X. That's what I said to her. You don't use X. If you want to analyze this conversation, you have to analyze the whole conversation in full context. You can't just pull things out of it and say, well, here's some facts from the conversation. What about, didn't I just tell you all this? Haven't I been telling you all this? You can't just pull things out of context and then say, well, let's analyze this one piece. You got to analyze the whole thing if you want to get to the truth, which she wasn't interested in actually doing. She was trying to do something else. And we're going to get to that here today. I said to her, you had to run the whole thing through ChatGPT, not just one post. But even then, I said, X is a contact sport. So if you ain't in the contact sport, you're sitting in the bleachers, who the fuck are you to tell people on the field how to play? Again, I didn't use the F word, but this is what I said to her. Then I said on the higher level, what's the actual point here? I ended my DM by saying, what's your point? What are you trying to prove here? Are you trying to get me to say things differently? Are you telling me you have a problem with the way that I talk to people on social media? And all you're telling me is what ChatGPT says. What do you say? And again, I'm asking her all these questions. And I said, if this is regarding your audience, because that's what she kept saying. Well, my audience might not be aligned with the way you're talking to people on social media. Again, first of all, what the fuck does my social media have to do with your audience? Your audience on your podcast is not automatically get to see my social media feed. They would have to choose to. And number two, we already recorded for your podcast where we didn't talk about any of this stuff. So isn't that what your audience wants, the interview? All right, what the hell does this have to do with anything? And again, I asked her again, I went deeper. I said, maybe your audience, what's the word? Are you suggesting that some people in your audience might hear me on your show, like me, go follow me on social media, and then be mad at you because I said something that they didn't like on social media, so they expected it to be a safe space, and now they're mad? And then I said, if so, number one, you're not responsible for what your guests do or say outside of your show. I was referring to myself. What I do or say outside of the confines of your show ain't your fucking business. And I do not answer to you for them. That was one. And number two, if what you sent me on ChatGPT is your barometer, well, you could disqualify pretty much anyone because ChatGPT could find a logical flaw in damn near any argument depending on where it's taken and if it's out of context. So what's the point here? Again, I asked her the same question again. What is the point? What are you actually trying to say? And she said, I agree with what ChatGPT said because I used it to provide a logical, emotionless explanation. So basically, she's hiding behind ChatGPT. This is a grown woman who owns a business. And she's saying she used ChatGPT because she didn't want to say what she actually believes. And she said, here's what she said. Here's the part I want you to catch. People who have personal branding as part of their business's identity, which I do, this is what she says, her suggestion. They should separate confrontational, hostile, and dismissive tones to a non-brand affiliated account. So if anybody looks you up on X, then they'll see these things. So basically, she's suggesting to me that me having these things connected to my business and my real name might turn some people off. Hell yeah, business is going to turn some people off. That's the fucking point. I want to turn some people off. I got an episode 1364. It's called Rejection Marketing. I want to turn people off. I don't want everybody to like me or like my stuff, and I don't need everybody to like me or like my stuff. She seems to be of the school of thought that you shouldn't say anything confrontational or anything that could possibly be, controversial via social media, at least not connected to your name. I disagree with this, but she didn't have the balls to actually say that. She's trying to make it sound like she's being objective and using ChatGPT as a crutch. That's really what she's doing. And she said, if there's a mentor you trust, and I'm skipping over some of her mealy mouth language here, but she says, if there's a mentor you trust, it can be worthwhile running this by them for feedback. What I said above is honest and what I believe. For someone in a leadership position, I'm also open to agreeing to disagree. We have different views on this. Well, first of all, bitch, I didn't ask you for your opinion in the first place. And again, these are all just things I'm thinking. I didn't say these things to her. And I said to her, the The responses you plugged into ChatGPT are out of context to the wider conversation. So if you're in an argument and I pull something you said in the middle of the argument out of it and ran through ChatGPT, would it make you look good? No. So this is complete nonsense. What are you doing? You're showing me absolutely nothing. And this is what I said to her. Then I said, secondly, your views on personal branding are your point of view on the topic. What you're saying, what personal branding should be. And by the way, this woman has like less than 1,000 followers on social media. So for her to tell me how to run a personal brand on the internet is very rich. But anyway, let's continue. And I say the way that I talk, both on your show and on X, they're both me. The way I talked on your show, very professionally and about business, and you love the conversation, that's Dre Baldwin. And the way I'm talking on X, when I'm putting this guy in his place because he's trying to make personal comments at me, he's trying to be sarcastic and dismissive, and I'm one-upping him in his own game, that's also Dre Baldwin. All of it is me. There's no two sides to it. I don't need a non-branded account. I stand behind every word that I publish on the internet, every single one. And I said that to her. And I said, per ChatGPT, that has nothing to do with things. And I told her, professional is not about tone or how you talk to people or what ChatGPT thinks. I don't give a fuck what ChatGPT thinks. Professional means you show up every single time that you deliver. It also means you do something as a main paid occupation. And guess what? Dre Baldwin qualifies on those 2 points. Again, I said this to her. I said, we are both entrepreneurs, and nobody dictates to me or to you what we can do and what we can't do. So you coming to me and saying, well, since you have a personal brand, you should do ABC. You have to be very careful with that word should. Because when you tell someone what they should do, you're giving them your opinion, but you're trying to make it sound softer than what it actually is. And I said, as entrepreneurs, nobody tells either of us what to do. I don't follow anybody's rules, and I don't have to adhere to anyone's standards, including hers. And I said, we have opinions, but you are cloaking your opinion. This is what I told her. You're trying to hide your opinion behind some objectivity of ChatGPT, was what she was actually doing. She was using ChatGPT to make it seem like her opinion wasn't an opinion. She was making it seem like, well, ChatGPT said it, so that must mean it's objective. Bullshit. And see, this is why I point these things out to you folks, because you have to be very careful with these people. This woman is no idiot. She knew exactly what she was doing. She's smart enough to know that if she would have came to me and said, Dre, this is my opinion, I disagree with ABC. What she doesn't, well, let me tell you what she doesn't. What she doesn't know is I'm the type of person she could have came to with that, and it would not have been a problem. But most people, it would be a problem if you came to them like that. So I understand why she used the approach that she did, which is still very passive aggressive. And I have very little respect for people being passive aggressive, especially when they're trying to give me some bullshit advice that I don't want to hear. And I didn't even get into our points here today, but I'm not done. We're going to get into all of it. And what she says here, again, she says that this is objective and rational, and I use ChatGPT to show you, to prove that I'm being objective and rational, which is bullshit. And I said, you brought ChatGPT into this. It has nothing to do with being professional, has nothing to do with tone or confrontation. It means showing up every day and delivering. And my track record is not on trial when it comes to that. And I said, you're cloaking your opinion as an objective truth and using ChatGPT as a crutch. That is bullshit. I said, just call it your opinion and we're good. That's what I said to her. Call it your opinion and we're good. And I said, I get what you mean, and that you believe that professional means being nice, positive, and getting along with people. Many people believe that the word professional means that. That's not what it means. Look it up in the dictionary. And I said a professional is a person who shows up and performs regardless of how they feel, consistently, independently. Again, that's dependably. I'm writing this in the DM. Now, if you don't agree with that, that's fine, but that's an opinion, and ChatGPT is not the arbiter of that. And I say comments pulled out of context you can make a person look any way you want them to look if you take something that they said and take it out of context. You can frame it any way and make anybody look crazy. You can make anybody look amazing. You can make a rational person look crazy. You can make a crazy person look rational if you pull things out of context. And I asked her, I'm trying to understand what exactly are you saying here? And I told her, I mentioned rejection marketing. And I told her, look, I played a rejection marketing game. I'm not trying to be cool with everybody. And then she goes and says, I'm not trying to argue. This is what she says. I'm not trying to argue. I just wanted to offer feedback that I thought would be relevant and helpful. It's okay if you don't agree with what I'm saying. I don't think it's professional, but you do, and that's okay. That's what she said. So first of all, it's okay if you don't agree with what I'm saying. She didn't say anything. All right. She cloaked her opinion, which she was afraid to say out loud, as objective by using ChatGPT to speak for her. All right. This is childish. This is something that a 17-year-old, a 21-year-old college student would do. This is a grown woman who's started multiple businesses telling me what ChatGPT says as if that's proof that it's logical and rational, which is bullshit. Anyway, so the valuable thing about advice is you have the choice to decide what to do with it. I might offer the same advice to someone else, whatever, whatever. And I don't want to turn this into a back and forth without an end. I respect you and your perspective and appreciate you sharing your thoughts candidly. We have different views on this, but I understand where you're coming from. That was the last thing she said. I did not respond to this woman. Now, I will tell you that within 48 hours, she unfollowed me on Instagram. And I subsequently unfollowed her back. Now, as of this recording, I don't know if the episode on her podcast that we recorded is actually going to come out. Maybe it will, maybe it won't. Either way, I have the audio. I got the video and the audio from that recording. So I might put it out myself. If she doesn't put it out, we will see. We'll give it we'll give it a couple months because she has a lot of episodes and a lot of guests. So I don't know where I was in her queue, if you know what I'm saying. So we'll see if that comes out. Either way, I'm giving you all of that to frame what we're talking about here today. Okay, so everybody got everything I've said here today. So what I'm going to do here today is explain to you why you should be very, very careful with any unsolicited advice you want to give. And you must hit all three of the points I'm going to share here today if you ever want to give advice to another person. Everybody understand this? Point number one. Today's topic, once again, is give advice only if, number one, you have permission. Never give someone advice if they have not given you permission to give them advice. I told you this one before. I will tell you again, and I'm telling you again now. If you do not have the permission of the person to whom you are going to offer advice, do not give advice. If you don't have their permission, don't give them advice. If you really feel you need to offer someone advice, first ask them if it's okay. Even though permission is a part of the big deal, and it encompasses 85% of why people go wrong in giving advice, this is still not a clear catch-all, nor does it put you in the clear for giving another person advice. Even though I'm giving you this as the first point, this doesn't put you in the clear. Why? Because if I go up to you, I'll walk up to you and say, hey, can I give you some advice? What are you going to say? You're probably going to say yes. You're probably going to say yes. If you know who I am in any way, shape, or form, you will probably say yes if I said, can I give you some advice? Why? Because you're being polite and I'm about to talk about you. So you're probably interested to hear what I have to say. But you asking the question in that way, you're setting yourself up. You're making it easy for yourself to say whatever it is that you want to say. You still need to do it, but this doesn't put you in the clear because, again, we didn't get to point 2 or point 3 yet. So if you ask someone you can get them advice, they're likely going to say yes. Most people are too polite to tell you no. Even I, in the story that I just told you, said yes when this person asked me, Dre, can I give you some advice? What did I say? I said yes, give me some advice. And they went and gave me the advice. Or they said feedback, whatever word they want to use. You don't have any idea what they're about to say. And remember, we're human. So if someone comes up to you and they want to talk to you about you, you're probably going to be open to hearing what they have to say because they're going to talk about you, your favorite subject, talking about yourself, even if it may be critical. All this adds up to mean just because someone gives you permission to give them advice does not necessarily mean that they care about what you're going to say, nor does it mean they're going to hear what you have to say. So this does not give you full clearance. That's why it's only the first point. Let me move on to point number 2. Today's topic, once again, is give advice only if. Point number 2. Your advice must be based on the goals of the person you're helping, not on what you want their goals to be. Here's where our friend, the podcast host, the ChatGPT podcast host, that's what we'll call her, ChatGPT podcast host, this is where she went wrong. She went wrong at this point right here. She was giving me advice based on what? What was her advice based on? Just listen to the exchange that I shared with you there. She was giving advice based on what she thought I should look at as quote unquote professional. She was giving me advice based on what she thought I should do as an owner of a personal brand. She was giving me advice based on what she thought anyone who was on her show should or should not do on the internet. Well, guess what? I don't give a fuck about what she thinks about any of those 3 things because I have my own opinions and my own beliefs about those things. And nor did I ask her what she thought about those things because I wasn't interested in her opinion. So see, her asking for permission wasn't enough because the second step, she fumbled the ball. She fumbled the ball by telling me her perspectives on personal branding, professionalism, tone, conversation, and how you talk to people on the internet. But guess what? She doesn't know what my goals are for any of those things. And she was offering me advice based on her goals and her perspectives. And that's where the conversation went left. Everybody catching this here? And I'm telling you all this to help you all understand you should be careful of making the same mistake. You often are giving people advice based on what you think they should want or what they should care about or what their goals should be when that ain't how you give advice. You give someone advice based on what they want and what they care about and where they're trying to go, not where you think they should go. This is an extremely important point, especially for those of you in high authority positions when you're offering feedback to someone who is subordinate to you in some way. I'm referring to you parents. When you're giving your kids advice, be very careful of this. You're not advising your kid based on what you think the kid should want, based rather than what they want. And a lot of parents screw this up. I've known a whole lot of parents of athletes who wanted their kid to be an athlete more than the kid themselves wanted to be an athlete. I've heard it. I've got the emails, I got the DMs, and I know people who fit this description. So parents out there who are into sports, be careful. You're not giving your kids advice to be athletes because you weren't an athlete or because you feel like they should continue the legacy of your athletic greatness. All right, that ain't their responsibility. Be careful, parent. And because you have so much authority over them, you can stuff it down their throats without them being able to push back. That's why I'm telling you to be careful, parent. Bosses, those of you who are in boss positions at work, your subordinates have to listen to you because of the position that you hold. Doesn't mean that what you're telling them is useful. It just means they got to listen to you because of the position that you hold, which means you can, again, force feed your opinion and your perspective down the throat of a person who they had to listen to what you have to say, even though they may not want to hear it. And they can't tell you they don't want to hear it. You got to check yourself before you even do that shit. Don't do that. Many of you make this mistake. Many people, when they're in a position of authority, or at least they think they are, make the mistake of advising someone else based on what you think they should want rather than what they want. A good salesperson bases the whole conversation around what your prospect wants, not what you want the prospect to want. You try to sell somebody based on what you think they should want, you're not going to make any sales. And this is the reason why being a salesperson is everyone should have an experience being a salesperson. Why? Because when you're a salesperson, you are on equal footing with your prospect. They don't have to buy from you if they don't want to. Which means if you fumble the ball in your communication, you won't make any sales and you'll be a very hungry salesperson. But see, when you're a boss or a parent, you can fumble the ball over and over and over again, and it's not obvious that you fumbled the ball till it's way too late. Your kid's 25 and they don't want to talk to you anymore because you try to force feed them what you wanted their life to be instead of what they want their life to be. And now they don't have to listen to you anymore. They don't talk to you anymore. Oh, I know I'm talking to somebody. Let me take a sip of water while that one sinks in. Anytime you give someone advice, you need to know what their targets, goals, and standards are, what they want. If you do not know what they want, do not give advice. Which means if you come to someone and say, can I offer you some feedback? Can I offer you some advice? And they say yes. The next thing you should do is ask them what their goals, targets, and standards are in the area in which you're about to give advice, because you may be assuming, and usually when you assume you're wrong. So this woman came to me and said, can I give you some feedback? She was going to give me some feedback on my social media, which I'm open to. Problem is, she didn't know what I was trying to do on my social media, and she spoke to me as if she did know, or as if she thought that I should want what she wants on social media, which I don't, and that's where she failed. And some of you listening to this have failed at this just this week. You start offering someone advice and you didn't even know what they wanted. Oh, you think that they want this thing. No, they don't. You think that they want to do what you do. They don't. You think they want to achieve at the level that you're achieving at. They don't. You think that they want to do ABC when they actually want to do XYZ. And see, so anything you say based on that framing is wrong because you're giving them advice based on something that they don't even care about. And guess what? Because of your power position, they won't say to you, you give me advice based on something that I don't even want. Coach, dad, mom, boss. See, they can't say that to your face because of the position that you hold. This is why you got to check yourself before you go in the wrong direction, giving people advice on something that they don't even want. And they got to sit there and listen to it, knowing that you don't know what the fuck you're talking about. You know what you're talking about on the level of the information, but you don't know what you're talking about because you're giving someone advice based on something that they don't want. That means you are incorrect. On top of the fact that, looking back at the Chat GPT podcaster, on top of the fact that we were speaking about a subjective thing, and I talk to you all about all the time, you need to be very careful separating the objective from the subjective. Objective are things that you can count, measure, and weigh. You can count, measure, or weigh it is objective. The score on the scoreboard is objective. The temperature outside is objective. All right, how many emails are in your inbox unread right now? That is an objective number. We can look at it and we can see. Subjective things are based on people's perspective. Tone of voice is subjective. Word choices are subjective. What encompasses professionalism to many people is subjective, even though it's in the dictionary. Most people see it one way, a lot of people see it another. But most people see professional meaning you're nice, you communicate well, you're compromising, you get along with other individuals. That is not in the dictionary under professional. Under professional means main paid occupation, and it means that you operate by rules and standards. Well, who sets the rules and standards? I don't know about the line of work that you're in, but in the entrepreneur world, there are no rules and there are no standards. There ain't any. So you can't tell an entrepreneur you got to operate by professional standards. There's no such thing. It does not exist. This is where another place this woman fumbled the ball. Because again, she was focused more on what she wanted to say rather than what I actually want. And guess what? She doesn't know what I want because you never asked. She said, can I offer you feedback? That was the last question she asked in the entire exchange. We exchanged a whole lot of words and a whole lot of messages. She asked a question one time. You want to sell somebody on something, you should be asking questions the entire time. Let me say that again. If you want to sell someone on something, an idea, a product, a service, a change, an action, anything, if you want to sell someone something, you should be asking questions, not making statements. This woman asked one question. Are you open to feedback? I said yes. She didn't ask a single other question the rest of the time. So she wasn't selling, was she? She was lecturing. That's what she was doing. And it's the reason why she failed to make a sale, because she didn't follow a sales process. She followed a lecture process. Here's the problem. I ain't no student, at least not of her class. So you can't lecture me on something that I didn't even ask you for. So this, again, I'm using my situation as a frame here. I want to make sure make sure you're not making these mistakes, because people make these mistakes every day, not even realizing what they're doing because they're so focused on their own ego, they don't even realize the mistakes that they're making. So these are not, again, tone of voice, word choices, what's nice, what's condescending, overly confident, arrogant, etc. These are not measurable. You can't measure these things. And what's funny is that me and this woman were both entrepreneurs. So her claiming that there's some type of standard by which entrepreneurs must conduct themselves is a ridiculous premise, because there is none. There's no entrepreneurial standard. There's no board of directors of entrepreneurs or ruling governing board that I had to appear in front of every year to qualify myself or to be certified by them. That's the very reason why I became an entrepreneur, because I don't want to have to qualify to anyone else's standards. I don't want to have to clear anybody else's bar, and I don't want to have to operate under anybody else's rules. I talk about that a lot here on this platform. It matters a lot to me as an entrepreneur. That matters a lot to me. So someone coming to me like this woman, the ChatGPT podcast host, and telling me, well, you're not being professional, i.e. operating by certain standards of conduct and behavior and tone and word choice. Bitch, who the fuck do you think you're talking to? Like, I don't operate by anybody's rules. I make my own rules. That was this is the problem. The mistake that she made was that she believes everyone in this box should operate this way. But that's not true. You can believe it if you want to. It would be better if she said, this is my opinion. And again, if she would have said it's her opinion, I would say, well, I reject your opinion. Thank you for sharing it. And we would have been cool. Maybe. But she didn't do that. She tried to make it seem like this is the standard. Again, there are no standards for entrepreneurs. Entrepreneurs make their own standards, which again, the ChatGPT host did not understand, or clearly does not understand. But who knows? Maybe she'll come back and rekindle this conversation at a later date. We will see. Anyway, so her telling me there's a certain standard for the way I talk is ridiculous. On top of the fact that I've been around for 20 years. I've literally been publishing content on the internet for 20 years. And I built my brand and business and continue to build my brand and business on the fact that I talk a certain way. Those of you listening to this who were listening to me back in the basketball days, if you knew who I was before 2013, anybody listening to this who knew my name and had consumed any material from me or heard me talk or had a conversation with me prior to the year 2013, didn't I talk like this back then? I mean, my vocabulary has expanded. I mean, I got a suit on now. I didn't have one on back then, but I've been talking like this for a really long time, even offline. I've been talking like this for a while. I built my business talking like this. I'm not saying that's the reason my business is like this, but I am saying it's the reason my business is like this. I talk about things a certain way. I use certain tones. I use certain language. I use profanity. I have no problem offending people if it happens. I don't try to offend people, but if you're offended, okay, so what? I'm not trying to remedy it. She either clearly didn't know this, probably because she was only following me for 2 weeks before she came to me, or does not understand and accept that as anything that she would do, which is definitely true. She probably would never do the stuff that I do online, which is fine. We don't have to be the same. That's a great thing about the world and humanity and entrepreneurship, is everybody can do things their own way. And it explains her difficulty in accepting it is that she was seeing me doing something that she would never do. That was her real problem. And there are some people out there, I just told you this yesterday, but I told you facts don't matter anymore. Some people have a really hard time accepting that other people look at things differently than how they look at things. And they just can't accept it. And this is the reason why she unfollowed me when I stopped responding to her chat GPT, quote unquote, objective reason, which was none of the above. Her explanation was that some possible business partner, that's what she said, might look at the way I talk online and decide they don't want to do business with me because something they saw me say online. Good, get the fuck out of here. And they could take you, Miss Host, with them. Anybody who hears something that I say on my platform and doesn't like the way I said it, and they decide, well, Dre, you know what? I was thinking about doing business with you. I was thinking about buying one of your books. I was thinking about signing up for your university. But because you used a curse word over here, or you said something condescending to someone in the comment, I don't want to do business with you anyway. I say, good, get the fuck out of here. I'm glad we figured it out before we got any deeper into this relationship, because I would have ended up pissing you off one way or another. So I'm glad I did it before you took any further steps. So now you can clean your hands of me. I can clean my hands of you, and you go find somebody else who you like. That's what I would say to anybody. Anybody listening to me right now, I'm telling you, I'm offering you the same invitation that I offered her. I am not here to please anyone. I'm here to give you the game as the game is. And the people who appreciate it, you take the next steps, you go further, you join the university, you take the next steps working with me. People who don't appreciate it, that's completely fine. I ain't for everybody, and I ain't trying to be. And I've been saying that, again, this ain't new. All right, this is not new. I've been saying this stuff for years. So anyway, continuing. I will never tell this woman, my language, my approach, my words, I would never tailor, rather is the word that I meant to say there. I would never tailor my language, approach, words, or delete content off my platforms because somebody doesn't like what I said. If you don't like something that I said on my platform, that's okay. There are people who are members of my university who don't like everything that I say, but it doesn't stop them from working with me because I can still give them value. Those are the kind of people I like working with. I like working with thick-skinned individuals and people who can logically and rationally look at things. You don't have to agree with everything I say, but I'm giving you enough value over here that what happens over there you don't even care about. And that's completely fine. But there are other people out there who they need to be completely aligned. Like every single thing you say has to be aligned with the way they think about things. Those snowflakes I don't want those people in my world. So if you're one of those people, I will eventually do something that causes you to go away. If I haven't done it already, it will happen. And I want to get rid of you. It's not going to be an accident when you're gone. I'm trying to get rid of you. I would rather those people go elsewhere, and I will work with people who are not offended or simply don't care or don't use it as a pretext for something that they don't really want to say. Which again, the ChatGPT host, she really just didn't want to tell me what she really believes, so she used ChatGPT again as a crutch, which is very passive aggressive. And she's a woman, so I can somewhat understand it, but I really get annoyed when people are passive aggressive and they try to use other people or objects like ChatGPT as a crutch for their own personal opinions because they don't have the balls to say their actual opinion. That annoys the shit out of me. And if she had done that in person, I would have humiliated this woman. If we were talking in person and she did the same thing that we did in DM, I would have humiliated this woman. And given her energy in the conversation, she probably would have ended up in tears. Not that I was trying to. She probably would have ended up that way because I just don't like when people are passive aggressive and they try to use shit as a crutch. Just say what the fuck you feel. If that's your opinion, just state your opinion. I don't have a problem with people having an opinion. As you can see, I got plenty of them. I offer you the same freedom that I want you to offer me. And this use of ChatGPT as well, I use ChatGPT because it's objective. Like, what? That's childish and it's cowardly. It's just like, that's self-explanatory. The point here is that when you offer someone advice, the advice should be based on what that person wants, which if you don't know what they want, you shouldn't be giving them advice. Which means if you follow the first point, you get someone's permission. The next thing you do is find out what they want before you offer your advice and your severe intelligence in the conversation. If you don't do this, you're offering a person advice you're offering advice to a person based on what you think they want or what they should want, not what they actually want. That is a mistake in communication. All right, I hope you see even at this point in the communication, while giving unsolicited advice or even solicited advice is often a rocky road to travel on. This is not for everybody. You got to be very careful when you're giving advice. People often fumble the ball in doing this, as you can see. Point number 3, today's topic, once again, give advice only if, number 3, you accept that your advice may not be accepted, not heeded, not appreciated, and unapplied. If you're going to give someone advice, you must accept that these 4 things may happen. People may not accept your advice. They may not heed your advice. They may not appreciate your advice, and they may not apply your advice. If you would be really annoyed or angry or hurt if any one of these 4 things happens, don't give advice. Don't give advice if you would be bothered by someone not accepting, not heeding, not appreciating, or not applying what you gave them, because it's going to happen. Most of the advice you give out will be not accepted, not heeded, not appreciated, and not applied. Most of it will not. None of these things will happen. Don't get any advice game if that bothers you. This is another big problem with selling your advice to other people who did not come to you asking for it. Many times, including the scenario that I've explained to you here today, the person offering the advice can't accept it when the person they gave the advice to doesn't want to hear it. So again, this woman unfollowed me on Instagram. I just stopped responding to her. I didn't say anything else to her. After her last message, I didn't say anything else. And she unfollowed me a couple days later. Why she unfollowed me? I didn't say anything. She unfollowed me because I didn't accept her advice, because I didn't apply her advice, and I was not open to hearing her advice. That's why she unfollowed me. And if that was how it was going to go, she might as well have just unfollowed me from the beginning and never even offered the advice. That would have been fine. And we could have saved ourselves some time, but I wouldn't have had the content for this episode. So I'm glad it happened. All right, this is the problem with offering people advice they didn't ask for. If someone does not come to you asking for advice, this is the problem when you go to them trying to give them advice, is that you're walking into a landmine. A landmine. There are a whole bunch of different ways it can go wrong for you. And you can ruin the relationship. Because all because of you, all because of your ego and your need to give somebody advice. Again, if somebody really wants your advice, they'll ask you for it. They're not asking you for it, that's telling you something, by the way. There's this problem at the problem when you go to someone else offering them advice, which is why I tell you, don't do it. Okay? The third issue, that even if you get someone's permission and it's in line with their goals, they still might not apply anything that you said. They still may not appreciate what you said. They will not heed your advice. They might keep doing the exact thing that you told them to stop doing. They might just completely ignore everything that you said. Here's my question to you. Are you okay with this? Are you okay with giving someone advice and they're completely ignoring everything you told them? If not, don't get in this game. Do you understand me? Most people get really annoyed. They get offended. They even get angry when they offer advice to a person and the person doesn't follow what they say. So let me say this really clearly so everyone understands it, okay? Write this down. No one is required to listen to follow, to accept, or to apply anything you say. And this is coming from someone with 3,000 episodes on this show, 13,000 videos on YouTube, tens of thousands of posts on social media, 35 books written, 4 TEDx talks given, who knows how many speeches given on stage. I give out what you can call advice every fucking day. I've been doing this for 20 years on basketball court, off the basketball court, business world, mindset, etc. I accept the fact that most of the people who hear the things that I am advising will not do anything with the material. If I got offended by that, I'd have died already from stress. I'd have given myself cancer. All right, if I got bothered by that. Do not get in this game expecting people to listen to, follow, accept, or appreciate anything that you give them. I'm not saying that nobody will. I'm saying most people won't. If that really bothers you, you're in the wrong game. Go find something else to do. Does everybody understand me? If someone wants to follow what they will, if they choose not to, they got the right to that. And you have no say. You have no control over what another person decides to listen to, apply, or use just because it came out of your mouth. The more quickly and deeply you accept this reality, the better you will do in any relationship. Even your personal relationships. Any of you in a relationship right now, like with a spouse, boyfriend or girlfriend, have you offered them some advice that they just didn't follow and they are still not following that advice? Let me help you out with something. Don't offer it to them again. All right, they heard you the first time, and the third time, and the 10th time. Stop offering that advice. Obviously, they ain't going to follow it. And if they will on their time, not your time. All you're going to do is ruin the relationship by insisting that they follow your advice. They ain't following it. Now, if it's an emergency and it will hurt them if they don't follow it, then don't make it advice. Just tell them, hey, this is going to hurt you, and that's not advice. That's different. But if it's just advice, meaning they can take it or leave it, and they choose to leave it, you leave it. Let it be okay that they don't want to hear what you have to say. You need to accept that. And this requires a high level of personal discipline and mental toughness. That you might think you have the best information in the world, and the person you want to offer it to does not care. You got to be willing to accept that. Now, whether or not, again, this woman, back to the ChatGPT host, we don't know if she's going to put this interview out. I don't know. I'm hoping that she does. Hoping she's professional enough to put the interview out. I'm going to guess I had to guess right now, I would say 51-49. I would guess that she puts it out. I would guess that she does, but I might be wrong. Again, I don't know this woman very well. And I guess that she does the interview because, again, the interview had nothing to do with any of this stuff that I'm talking about here. So none of you know who this person is because I didn't identify them. I've been on hundreds of podcasts, male and female hosted, so you don't know who I'm talking about. But if the episode comes out and you listen to it, you will have no idea who I'm talking about because there's nothing in the conversation that sounds like anything that we talked about in the DMs. Because, again, the DM conversation didn't happen until after we recorded the show. Good news is, as I said, I had the footage. So even if she doesn't put it out, I'll release social media clips even if she doesn't. And just in case any of you is wondering if I will divulge who this is, as I told you, for now, I'm not. Now, if she was to put something out and put my name in it in any type of negative way, then I will take the gloves off. So you thought I took the gloves off today. I did not. I would take the gloves all the way off and I'll put this back out with her name in it. But I don't think that's going to happen. I doubt that. I don't think she's that type. But again, I could be wrong. I've been wrong about people before, but I think I'm a pretty good judge of character. So we'll see what happens. Let's move on to point number 4. I got one more point. Today's topic, once again, is only give advice if. Number 4, here's the fix to all of this. Let's say you really want to give advice. Let's say you really have some game that you want to give out to people, and there's some people you want to give game to, but they don't appear open to it. They haven't given you permission, and you don't want to be disappointed by the fact that you gave them advice and they just completely ignored it and did nothing with it. You don't want to feel that disappointment. What can you do? This is a good question. Here's the answer. I want you to do exactly what I do. You want to know what I do? Anytime I'm thinking about giving advice to one person, here's what I do. I take what I would have said to that one person and I share it generally with the public and make it a conversation between me and the public rather than me and that one person. Most of the content that I put out is based on that. So you want to know how I create so much content? That's how I do it. This way, the people who are consuming what you're putting out, these are people who have voluntarily chosen to listen to it. Those of you who are listening to me right now, I've been talking for almost 50 minutes. Those of you listening to me right now, you want to hear me talk about this. And the people who don't want to hear this, they ain't listening. And that's completely fine. That way, I'm only talking to people who want to hear what I have to say. They call this preaching to the choir. I'm talking to people who want to hear what I have to say, not people who don't want to hear it and hoping that I can convince them to want to hear it. That's a bad idea. It's a bad business to be in. You want to be talking to an audience of people who want what you're sharing and they have willing and open ears. For those of you who like to give advice, or at least feel like you have some advice that others would benefit from it, but you're not sure they would be open to it, or you're not sure how to even communicate it with them, I'm showing you exactly what I do. This is what I do. I do this every single day. I've been doing it for every day for years. Again, different topics, but every day. It's not that I see one particular person that needs some advice all the time. I just think about things a little bit differently. So anytime I have somebody come to me with a question or with a challenge or a need or something happens in life, such as the ChatGPT host, I assess what they're asking and I theorize, are there other people in the world who could benefit from knowing that this is happening? There are other people in the world that could benefit from me answering the question to one person. What if I answered it for the whole world? What if I take this situation that happened between me and this one person in a DM on Instagram and I told the whole world about the story and then framed it to help you all understand what mistakes this person made in the communication? Would other people benefit from that? Is anybody benefiting from hearing what I'm saying right now today? Okay, that's why I do it. I take things that happen between me and one person and I share the conversation with everybody. I share the situation with everyone. As a matter of fact, just today, just recently, it might have been, wait a minute. I said this I believe I said it in yesterday's masterclass, but I'm recording these on the same day. I got cussed out by a GoPuff delivery driver. GoPuff is like Uber Eats, but for like snack foods. And the GoPuff delivery driver cussed me out. They were mad because I didn't give them a bigger tip on an order that was like $18. I'm going to do a whole episode on my show around that exchange. Not the exchange itself, but what it means when it comes to gig workers or service workers complaining that customers are not giving them a big enough tip. I got things to say about that in case you didn't know. That's coming. But anyway, I just assess whatever is going on between me and one individual and I theorize, are there other people who could benefit from knowing about this? And if the answer is no, then I don't put it out. The answer is yes, and I do. Simple as that. I believe that if I believe there are, I answer the question for the general public rather than just for one person so that anyone who has the same challenge can get the answer without having to know me or come to me or get me to answer the same question 300 more times. So when I put a video on YouTube, I'm answering a question that I think more than one person has. So now I can answer the question for 2 people or 2,000 or 2 million people without having to talk to each individual person one by one, because I'm eventually gonna run out of time doing that. That's how I create content. I take something I would say to one person and I say it to the world. That's how I do it. Simple as that. The very episode you're listening to is an example of this. I can take everything I'm saying in this episode and I can just send it to the ChatGPT podcast host. But the problem is I'll be wasting all of this talking on just one person. And who knows, she might not even be open to it. But I'm sharing it with you because you want to hear it. Again, anybody who didn't want to hear this, you could have turned it off. But you listen to it because you want to hear it. And the material, again, gets to reach everybody who wants it rather than giving it to someone who might not be interested. All right, so you understand I'm eating my own dog food here. I'm taking the same stuff that I'm telling you and I'm doing it myself. By making content out of it, everybody else gets to hear about it, know about it, hopefully be entertained by it. Maybe some of you will apply it if you want to, instead of the experience being wasted on just me and the ChatGPT host. All right, so when I made basketball material back in the day, I got my content ideas simply by talking to and listening to basketball players. They told me what the challenge was. I made content about it. Simple as that. Player said to me, Dre, how do I have confidence in the game? I made a video about it. Someone said, Dre, how do I do the crossover dribble? I made a video about it. Someone said, Dre, I'm right-handed, but I'm not good with dribbling or making layups with my left hand. How can I get better at it? Made a video about it. Somebody said, Dre, I want to get in shape off the court. And I know you're good with being in the shape. You got the on the court stuff, but is there a way I can train off the court? I went and found someone who was a great off the court trainer and had them make a program in conjunction with me, answer the question, made a product out of it and sold it. All I did was answer the questions that people were asking. And that's all I do to this very day. And I answer the questions that people are not asking that they don't even know that they should be asking. I do the exact same thing now. Again, we swapped out basketball. Now we got mindset, strategy, system, implementation, leadership, communication, and everything in between. Whatever you could ask, or whatever you heard me talk about, I'm doing the same thing I always did. I take experiences that would involve me and one other entity, and I bring you into the conversation. This is why I say everything is material. So if you're a person who has a strong need to offer advice and information to other people, do it the way that I'm explaining it to you, rather than the way that maybe you have been trying and failing to do it. This way you can never lose. See, I never lose giving advice because I'm never giving advice to someone who doesn't want to hear it. You understand? So if I put a video on YouTube and 10 people watch my video, that means there were 10 people who wanted to hear what I had to say. And I'm not talking to any of the 10 or 20 or 50 or 1,000 people or 1,000,000 people who did not want to hear what I had to say. And I'm completely fine with that. Or whatever number it is, 1,000, 50, 100, million, whatever number wants to hear it, those are only people hearing it, because people have to voluntarily listen to you on social media or any form of any content platform. Someone doesn't want to see what I got to say in my emails, you can unsubscribe. All right, you don't want to hear what I say on this show, stop listening. All right, I'm batting 1,000 on this show because the only people listening to me are the people who want to hear me. I'm never talking to someone who doesn't want to hear what I have to say. Never. Everybody understand the framing of what I'm saying here? Now, I will tell you, it's much easier to give advice to a person when they come to you asking for it than when you go to them offering it. You save yourself a lot of anguish and help the people who actually want your advice, because they do exist. They are out there and they're waiting to hear from people like you. And it's much easier to give advice when someone asks you for it rather than when you go trying to force feed it upon them. I would suggest you give 99% of your advice to people who are coming to you asking for it. Never go to a person other than maybe your kids or spouse, and I already told you about both of them already, offering advice that they didn't ask you for. Even the spouse is questionable. Your kids are questionable as well, but your kids, depending on what the advice is, maybe they need to hear it. But your spouse, that's questionable too. 99% of your advice, save it for the people who ask for it. And if someone subscribes to your podcast, they're asking for your advice. If someone subscribes to your YouTube, they're asking to hear what you have to say. Someone follows you on Instagram, they're asking to hear what you have to say. Those are the people you give your advice to. And if they like it, they'll keep following you. If they don't like it, they'll unfollow you. All right, simple, it's passive, and you might not even know that it's happening. That's the way you give advice. Let's recap today's class. Give advice only if. So I'm not going to recast my ChatGPT podcast host story. Y'all got the story already. The points are, number one, you got to have permission. But again, having permission doesn't put you in the clear, because number two, your advice must be based on the goals of who you're helping, not on what you think their goals should be or what you want their goals to be. This is where a lot of people fumble the ball and a lot of people mess up, because you give people advice based on what you think rather than what they think. Number three, you accept that your advice may not be accepted, heeded, appreciated, or applied. If you cannot accept this, don't give advice. Most of the advice you give out, nobody's going to follow it. Nobody's going to listen to it. Nobody's going to care, even though you put a lot of time into giving it. And number four, the fix for all of this is take whatever you would say to one person who doesn't want to hear you and say it to the world, and let the people who want to hear it, hear it. They are out there. They do exist. You got to stop wasting your time talking to people who don't want to hear what you have to say and talk to people who actually do want to hear. Maybe a lot fewer people, but those are the people who are willing, and you're much better off giving your advice to someone who wants it than giving your advice to someone who doesn't. Simple as that. All that said, folks, workonyourgameuniversity.com. You want to learn to communicate in such a way that you are getting your message across to willing ears, people who are willing to hear it, people who want to hear it, and people who want even more of it. Go to workonyourgameuniversity.com, and you can stop playing around here, sending DMs with chat GPT copy pasted messages telling you what professional is. Don't do that. Don't do what you heard me say the chat GPT podcast host did here today. Go to workonyourgameuniversity.com, learn how to do things the right way. Work on your game. Dre, all